Lupin's suffering from a pretty bad case of athlete's foot, so he's visiting a doctor called Badwalser for help. The doctor notes there's no known cure in modern medicine, but the seed of an ancient Egyptian flower might be useful in concocting a cure. Currently there are only 3 in existence, one being in the Marseille National Museum. Badwalser is an expert in genetics, so making clone copies of the seed would be no problem. As he offers a temporary solution, he conceals the skin sample he took from Lupin. The problem keeps getting in the way of day-to-day activity, so Lupin decides to steal the seed that night. The seed is guarded by the usual laser grid, so Lupin eases down to its location. He fights off the itching, but it's all for naught as the seed is a trap set by Zenigata. He races out, but gets caught by a searchlight. On top of that, his itching causes him to fall and get caught in a net. Turns out Badwalser was working with Zenigata in exchange for some documents on Lupin's criminal history. To add insult to injury, Fujiko was also working with Badwalser, but she calls him out on his actions. Before she leaves, she plants a bug to learn of the doctor's motive. He has a hidden lab behind a vault door, planning to use a skin sample he took from Lupin to clone him. The documents are being used to pass on Lupin's knowledge and have them steal the world's treasures for himself. While en route to Japan, Lupin causes Zenigata grief as the athlete's foot keeps acting up. Goemon waits as they pass through a tunnel and cuts a hole in the side. Lupin fakes another itching fit and falls out, airlifted away by Jigen. Zenigata's not willing to give him up, but all he gets is the side of a bridge to the face for his trouble. The cause of the athlete's foot were Lupin's socks, a gift from Fujiko. As an apology, she provides him with a recording of Badwalser's plans. Zenigata figures Lupin will strike and gets a police force ready. Badwalser's informed, but Lupin's already there. The police surround the building as Lupin tries to crack the vault. Badwalser informs him it's voice activated, unaware of Fujiko's bug. As Zenigata approaches, the gang make a big show of needing explosives to break open the vault door to keep him at bay. Using the recording, the vault is opened. Zenigata tries to approach from a window, but the gang then shout that they need to be prepared for their poison gas trap, burning the documents as a means of simulating it. Goemon knocks Badwalser out before he can protest. Lupin finds the cell cluster and destroys it as Zenigata arrives in a suit of armour, overhearing Lupin claiming iron counters the gas. He ends up pulled into the vault as a bid to grab Lupin thanks to the magnet Jigen used earlier, allowing the gang to escape. As he pulls off his armour and races back outside, he spots the burned documents and figures Lupin will head to the roof. He fails to pay attention as the vault is closed with Badwalser trapped inside. By the time he gets to the roof, Lupin's already escaped via balloon. Certainly the goofiest concept for a Series 3 episode so far, not to mention kinda gross. Might be episodes like this that give Series 3 its reputation, I guess. Still, not the first or last time cloning is seen in the franchise, so there's that much, even if I doubt that the clone would work as an exact copy of Lupin due to stuff like life experience and so on. On the plus side, this is the first we've seen Zenigata actually get involved in a while at least. Plus you might recognise Badwalser's voice as Junpei Takiguchi, also known as Mr. X and Phantoma. Lupin is employing Goemon's skills in his cooking. Jigen then calls him an idiot, pointing to a newspaper clipping. Despite being a pretty accurate depiction of journalism, Lupin also recognises it as a code that was used to signal his grandfather back in the day. It was sent by the Minister of Justice, who spots Lupin arrive in his favourite disguise despite Zenigata already being there. They meet up and the Minister calls him out almost immediately. The purpose of this signal, actually sent by Zenigata for the record, was to get Lupin's appraisal on a diamond in the Minister's possession that Arsene Lupin once owned. It's currently sealed in a container filled with a substance that ignites upon being exposed to air. An image of Arsene confirms the diamond is indeed real. With that knowledge, the minister suggests a wager of his job versus Lupin's freedom if Lupin can steal the diamond from its container within a week. Lupin accepts, walking free thanks to planting a bomb on the minister should Zenigata try anything right now. Lupin's plan involves Goemon cutting the container, using water balloons for practice. Doesn't go too well, but Goemon does enjoy training to cut the seeming impossible. Later, Jigen asks how the diamond ended up in the minister's possession and learns that Arsene was tricked by the minister's mother. Jigen's reminded of Fujiko, to which Lupin mentions she's on a hot spring trip so she doesn't pull her usual tricks on this heist. Lupin's interest turns to a thief called Kusogumo, who apparently is capable of phasing his fingers through walls and safes to steal things. He's currently in prison, so Lupin pays him a visit, offering to spring him in exchange for his help. Jigen notes that things went too well, as evidenced by the minister noting everything going according to his plan. Goemon manages to get the balloon cutting technique down. It's also revealed that Kusogumo is actually a disguised Zenigata, placed by the minister to strike when the time comes. Lupin goes over the plan to steal the diamond when Jigen points out Goemon's in bad shape. Turns out it's just hunger. That night, Lupin drives out to the minister's place to brag about Kusogumo and bring him to the diamond chamber as witness to his victory. Upon arriving, Zenigata unmasks, leaving Lupin putting on a display of despair. He drops it soon after, having already known who was under the mask. Jigen and Goemon also arrive, with Goemon cutting the diamond container. He grabs the diamond and Lupin bids them farewell, leaving them to escape the effects of the explosive liquid. Not a bad battle of minds here. A little bit obvious that Lupin was always on top of things, seeing how Goemon continued his training in the episode even with Kusogumo present, but that's part of the fun of it. That and Lupin rubbing it in his victim's, in this case the minister's, face at his victory. Also interesting to see that as much as Lupin shrugs off Fujiko's betrayals, he has his limits when it comes to his grandfather's legacy, something that's been alluded to quite a bit even as far back as Series 1. We open on an assassin named Lucky completing a job for a crime boss known simply as Mama. Fujiko is also in her employ, which of course means Lupin has an interest in something of hers. In this case it's a ruby known as Dracula's heart. Mama's aware of Lupin, having been watching him since he infiltrated, and tells him the one he's acquired is fake. She's interested in hiring Lupin for a job, seemingly charming him into doing so despite his policy of not working for others. Turns out to have been a ploy to steal the real ruby. Probably would have been more impressive if his escape was more graceful though. Lupin relays the info to the gang on Mama, namely that she's been alive for over 300 years due to the ruby bleeding Dracula's blood every century on his birthday, granting an extended life. They're interrupted by Lucky launching an attack. With some quick movement, avoiding gunfire and grenades, Lupin escapes outside. He has a chance encounter with Zenigata, so he knocks him out and steals his car. Lucky continues his pursuit and Zenigata soon wakes up. The two struggle with the steering wheel and flip over an oncoming truck. Using this, Lupin escapes both Zenigata and Lucky for the time being. With Lucky unsuccessful, Mama decides to make use of Fujiko to retrieve the ruby. She and Lupin are doing their usual fooling around when she holds him up, demanding he give her the ruby as it only bleeds through a ceremony that Mama knows how to initiate. Lupin does so and gets cuffed to his bed for his troubles. Pulling the bed along, he grabs Fujiko before she can leave. She struggles as there's a bomb in the room, but Lupin reminds her of their vow to die together. She bites herself free and leaves Lupin to the explosion. Mama congratulates Fujiko on getting the ruby back, granting Fujiko the request of drinking the blood. The ceremony begins that night. Fujiko, or rather Lupin, is offered as a sacrifice to Dracula, found out because according to Mama's group, Fujiko wouldn't ask to drink from the ruby blood. He straps her across as the ceremony proceeds and does indeed cause the ruby to bleed. Before he can be killed, Jigen and Goemon come to the rescue. Lupin smashes the glass the ruby's stored in as retribution. As a result, Mama starts rapidly aging, effectively turning to dust as her followers all come out of a trance. Fujiko is less than thrilled with Lupin that they lost the blood in the fight, however, not having any memory of Mama's control. Closest we've had to a mythical episode so far. Funnily enough, Mama actually reappears in Series 5 despite turning to dust here. Though granted, the story was a bit of a rework from the manga story it was based on. I have to admit I find it strange that Mama's group suggests Fujiko wouldn't request a drop of ruby blood, given that she's suggested she wants immortality in a couple of episodes and movies before and since. Could just be the effect of her mind control, I suppose. Of course, with the franchise being around as long as it has now, I'd say she's probably achieved her goal. Lupin's made his move on another art gallery. His target was a painting of Arsene's Lady Love. Unfortunately, he's fallen for another forgery. Fujiko enters, identifying the painting as the work of Baltan, suspecting he still has the originals. Lupin decides to head out to Baltan's home out in the desert. Zenigata's not far behind, so Lupin tosses a scorpion his way, which then explodes. It happens. As Lupin infiltrates Baltan's house, we see that Baltan's actually pushing around the real forger, an artist named George, using his daughter Sophie as leverage. As Lupin admires Baltan's collection, he's set upon by security. His escape attempts end in near impalement too. Security don't have any luck pinning Lupin down, at least. He's hiding in Sophie's room, and it turns out they know each other. He met her about 10 years prior, often performing a trick of making candy appear to cheer her up. George is an acquaintance of Lupin's who's been forced back into forgery, so Lupin swears to help them out. He leaves a message along with a hole in the wall for Baltan. Baltan decides to head out to pursue Lupin himself, but gets outed as Lupin by his security captain as the real Baltan can't drive. Zenigata catches up, focused on Lupin and not noticing Sophie in distress. Back at Baltan, Sophie puts a knife to her throat, demanding to see her father alone. Due to her dodging any guards' attempts to stop her, Baltan agrees to her terms. Upon meeting with George, Sophie reveals herself as Lupin. He tells the artist that Sophie is currently safe with Zenigata. Well, safe once he realises she's not a double-layered disguise anyway. Baltan bursts in, revealing he was eavesdropping. Lupin pulls the carpet from under him and escapes with George. Baltan tries to follow but gets tripped up thanks to one of his own sculptures. He continues the chase, finding Lupin and George seemingly surrendering. He and his men gun them down only to discover they were explosive decoys. No wait, I did that line already. Baltan continues further up and finds Lupin waiting. This time there's a small army of explosive decoys for him. He eventually manages to catch up to Lupin in the gallery, but before he can make a move, Zenigata storms in, declaring Baltan also under arrest thanks to Sophie's testimony. He's on the arresting warpath, but suddenly the gallery's walls come away. Lupin climbs aboard with George, wishing everyone farewell. Thanks to all of this, Sophie and George are free to live their lives in peace. Lupin plans to take the real paintings as payment, but a traffic warden wants to see his license for the truck. Turns out it was Fujiko, stealing the truck the second Lupin opens the door. As he chases after her, Sophie and George head off to their new life. This one was a lot of fun, with some good comedy content from stuff like the Baltan chase. Baltan himself does a good job of being the blowhard that overestimates his ability against Lupin, and we get a relatively peaceful ending to it all. Sometimes it's nice to be reminded that Lupin does have his noble side. Next time, a ladies' party involving crows, a kidnapping leading to Lupin's arrest, a treasure safeguarded by a camel, and a golden apple in the Big Apple takes us to episode 16. Until then.